All right. We are live.
Perfect. Thank you, Marissa, so much. All right. Hello. Good evening. Welcome to Love Sweet Arrow, our virtual event. Tonight we are discussing the magic of audiobooks. And I'm so excited to be here tonight. I'm Melanie Johnson, and I have with me this evening author April Asher and narrator of her Supernatural Singles series, Zura Johnson. Now, did I say that correctly? Is it Zura?
Yes.
Yes, great. Thank you. So we're going to just jump right in and we're going to have them introduce themselves, tell us a little about themselves, and then we're going to get into all the exciting bits of the series and the audiobooks. So April, take it away. Tell us a little bit about you.
So I'm April Asher. I write under April Asher with my supernatural, my paranormal rom-coms. I call it like sexily supernatural. And then as April Hunt, I write steamy romantic suspense. So, but have two names to differentiate the two different styles. I'm a nurse by day, writer by night. I live in the DMV, Northern Virginia area with my college sweetheart husband, my two now no longer little kids. They're teenagers now. And then a cat who thinks she's a dog.
I love that.
And that's pretty much it. So I write stories by night, mostly when everybody is asleep and in bed and the house is quiet for once.
Yeah, that's a busy. So are you a nurse who kind of has those 12-hour shifts where you're working those very long shifts as well? And also thank you so much for continuing the work that you're doing through all of this. Like there is, I mean, we need you. And
my husband won't let me quit, so.
That's a conversation for another time. This cat that acts like a dog, what's its name?
Cassie. So Cassie, okay. Yeah. So she thinks she's part human and part dog, but she has no idea that she's a cat. So. But she is. I was there when we got her.
I met in San Diego when I had just finished graduate school, and he is not involved in theater or acting in any way. So it was like I was dating a real person for the first time. It was very exciting. But we moved here from Singapore and we lived there for 5 years, and I narrate books full time. I'm also a visual artist. I do a lot of ink drawing and stuff. And then I have 2 kids. They have Welsh names, Arwen and Rhys. And Rhys was named before Sarah J. Maas did it. I'm just saying. And and then we have a zoo that lives here. We have 3 cats. And their names are Oz, the Bruce, and Hobbs. And then we have a rabbit and a dragon.
Like a bearded dragon?
Yes. My dog wanted a dragon, so that was as close as we could get.
I do not like lizards, but I've always loved bearded dragons. I don't know what it is about them. They're cute.
They are so derpy. They're so derpy and cute. Yeah.
So I have a daughter. It's Gwyn is a Welsh name. I know it's usually for boys, but I have a daughter named Gwyn. Yes. And so and we don't tell her that it's like, yeah, actually it's kind of a boy's name, but oh well. Like she when she was little, because we didn't change it to, and we didn't like make it like Gwyneth or Gwendolyn or Guinevere. We're like, no, we just want it to be Gwyn. And people would always ask her, and then she's like, no, it's just Gwyn. Like, so that's just how she now answers everyone. Like, just Gwyn. And then she would spell it. Like she was like 3 or 4, and she's like Gwen, GWYN Gwen. Like that's just how she would say.
That's
say her name.
Reese struggles because people always want to say rice, or they don't know what to do with the RHYS spelling. Yeah. Poor monkey.
Yeah, you know what? But I think it's fun, especially because you're a Johnson also. So I don't know if that's your official last name, because there's like a gazillion of us. So
yeah,
we're doing them a favor.
It's true. You got to stand out. My naming is, I'm named after my great grandmother, but my brother's names are Zebulun and Zion. So we had to have like really unique names. And as a stage name, my name was Zura Athena Young, because that was my maiden name. And so when I fell in love with someone with the name Johnson, I was like, that's so ordinary, you know? But what do you do?
Yeah. I love it because in romance novels, always the families have all the characters named, with the same letters or something. So I love that this is actually the case in your family. So,
It is.
it happens, people. It really does happen. There are all families with all the kids that have names with the same letter, which is cool. I like it. All right, so we are going to move into talking about the books, and I'm going to ask April. I should remind people, if you're watching, please make sure that you can grab a copy of the first book, Not the Witch You Wed, and now the second one. Happy release week to April. Not Your Ex's Hexes from Love Sweet Arrow. And April did send some signed book plates to the store, so you'll be able to nab those, get those as well as part of your book order. All right, so April, we don't have to go into all the details, but can you give us kind of like a quick little summary of how you became a published author?
Yeah, quick summary because it's a long story. So basically, I've always written, but I didn't start really playing around till I was on bed rest with my first kid. And then got a little bit more serious was when I was on bed rest for even longer with my second one. But it wasn't until my friend Tiff Marcello, who, we're nurses together way back in the day. And we found out that we both wrote. And at the time, I was just playing around. She was querying for an agent. And she's actually the one that kind of told me to get serious about it. She's like, you need to do it. You need to do it. So I constantly say she's the reason why I'm actually published.
I think that's awesome. I mean, one, your kids are like, you owe me, Mom, because if it wasn't such a difficult pregnancy, you wouldn't have been stuck writing. And two, I love that, like, this fellow writer, this fellow nurse, was just like kind of I think sometimes we need that. We need that kind of external push to like give us that confidence boost to be like, all right, I'll go for it. I'll try it, So that's awesome. And look at where you are. Here you are, So how many? So is this second April Asher book then?
This is the second April Asher. Yeah. My other 8 books were April Hunt. So this is second April Asher. Yeah.
And then Zura, it sounds like from your intro that you've kind of always been involved in theater. So what was the segue into audiobooks?
I actually, the funny thing is I got into theater because of audiobooks back in the day when there were books on tape. That's how I started falling in love with books, is I would listen to those and I'd memorize them and recite them to my parents, who decided I needed a real audience. So, because they couldn't listen anymore, and they put me on stage. And I've done theater and then got into voice acting after graduate school. And after living overseas, when I came back, it's like such a huge pond, such a huge industry here. I didn't really know how to get back into it. And a friend of mine from school runs her own production house. And she was like, you have to do audiobooks. And I was like, yeah, I do. And it's the best of both worlds, because I get to play all the parts. I don't have the rehearsal schedule. I get to do funny voices and wear my pajamas to work. So
I did. And if you go to Zura's Instagram, there was posts you built like a studio, like a little in-house studio. It was so cool. So if you haven't gone to Zura's Instagram page, go check it out and look at this really cool studio that they built, that her little booth that she gets to kind of hang out in when she's narrating. I love that. So it was kind of like audiobooks that you enjoyed as a kid that then led you into wanting to do theater. I was a high school English and theater teacher, and I directed children's theater for years and years. So that kind of getting kids into the love and excitement of drama and theater, that's awesome. Really fun.
It's all storytelling. So
yes, it is all story. And that's the thing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, kind of like, because it's the writer writes the book, but then an audio narration kind of adds this additional layer of storytelling to it, which can be scary for the author.
Sometimes. Not at all.
Let's talk a little bit more about that too. And so I mean, we don't want to say the dreaded, like the fact that like these conversations about AI narration and all, like it's just horrifying, and it's just sad also that it's just that they're taking that human element out of storytelling, which is depressing. But we're not there yet. We're still here and enjoying the magic of actual audiobooks, and all the work that goes into creating them. So April, we're going to talk a little bit about the series, your Supernatural single series. So what inspired you to start writing some witchy romance?
In the short, COVID. I knew those are so actually, so the end of 2019, I was finished with my last romantic suspense book. And I was at that time where it was time to think about what was next. And like, in 2019, early 2020, you know how trends come and go, and the paranormal really wasn't back yet. There were whispers that it was possibly going to start coming back. So I pretty much, tried to write another romantic suspense, but it just wasn't happening. And then COVID happened. And then I was like, I am a nurse, I needed something that was not based in any kind of reality whatsoever. And literally just thought on my couch one night after a shift, what would happen if supernaturals were all out in the open and like dating in New York City? And then I was like, all right, witches and shifters, because those are probably my two favorites. And I was like, but I also like demons and angels and vampires. I'm like, you know what? Let's just throw all of them in there, And so I told my agent my zany idea, and I said, look, I know it's a risk, but I need this. And she's like, you know what? Go ahead, write something, see what happens. And I wrote the first 70 pages of Not the Witchy Wed in less than a week. And that was unheard of for me, especially when I was trying to write a romantic suspense and it took me a day to write 2 sentences, So we took a gamble. So we just went for it. And luckily I found a wonderful home at St. Martin's, and here we are. Book 2 just came out.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I think that you are tapping into something special when it just pours out of you like that. When the words are flowing.
Yeah, and paranormal has always been like my first love. I was a fan of Vampire Diaries like before Ian Somerhalder, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to date myself, but but I was the original fan now. And I don't know, and it's just been, as I get older, I just absorb more paranormal stuff. So it was kind of like a natural thing to kind of gear off to it.
And I think that really resonates too, that, what you were dealing with and what we were all dealing with, but you especially being in kind of like the kind of ground zero of it all. And like, I just need something that is not at all connected to reality.
Yeah.
Like
and
true escape.
Yeah. And I think that's why paranormal came back so big in 2020. It just boomed, and that's because everybody needed that same escape,
Absolutely.
So. Mm-hmm.
Well, right, like all of the paranormal stuff and like kind of like this kind of magical realism. So it's like taking our, the world that we're living in, but giving it this kind of other piece that we can again escape into.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, yeah. Because I know you just did the event with Avery last night, and she just had a witchy book out as well.
Yeah, she did. What you gonna do? And
what you gonna do? Yeah.
What you gonna? I love that title.
I am full on. What?
I auditioned for that one.
Ooh.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about auditions right now.
Love the witch books.
So, speaking of auditions, when you got the script, now do you get the whole book? Or usually you just get like an audition sample. So how did that work for you, Zura?
I was not given an audition sample for this one.
Oh, was it? Okay, so was this one of these situations where they have samples of your work and they send it to AHA? So it's very interesting because there's different ways that different publishers, different audiobook houses, for anyone who's not familiar with this world, like there's lots of different avenues for how this works. And I feel like traditional publishing, especially, it's kind of much more like in their own like silent, like silent. It's much more siloed of how these things happen. So yeah, so you have your audition pieces, you have your like narration samples that then get shipped out to the authors who can listen to them. So it was actually April who heard some various works from you.
I would love to know what it was you heard.
Let me tell you. Okay. So this was Not the Witch You Wed was like my, I'm sorry, like my 10th published book or something like that. But it was the first time I got to pick an audiobook narrator. All my books, I never got to pick. Like, it was like, okay, here's your audiobook. Like, so, and I was not expecting to be able to pick, it's just all of a sudden I get an email from my publisher and they had narrowed it down to 2 people. And they said, here are their sample clips. See, take a look, take a listen, see who you like. And then like the first time I saw the picture and we were talking about like Zura's purple, the purple hair, Violet has purple streaks. And I remember sitting there and I said to my husband, I'm like, oh, and he's like, why don't you? I was like, this is it. And he goes, why don't you actually take a listen? And I'm like, the purple hair. I'm like, come on. And he's like, okay, fine. So listen to the clips and they were both wonderful, but there is just something with Zura. Like, I literally pictured Violet in my head as like I was listening to Zura's voice. And then like I knew right away, like Zura was it. You know what I mean? Like I knew. And then I proceeded to literally chase my husband and my children around the house with the audio going, listen to this. Is this not my character? Like, listen to this.
That is so awesome. And that is rare too. That is very kismet that you were like, that's the one. And I love your husband. You're like, maybe you should actually hear the voice.
He's so practical that way. I don't know how we ever ended up together.
But then that it was exactly what you imagined. And I loved it when I listened to Not the Witch You Wed. I'm like, I'm kind of an audiobook snob. Like I love audiobooks, but I'm pretty picky when it comes to my narrators. And I just fell in love with Zura's narration immediately. And so that's why I'm like, if I can get the opportunity to talk to these 2 and their, talk about that experience, I would definitely do that. So you didn't get to audition. You just kind of got hired for this job. So then, you do eventually get the manuscript.
Yeah. And this is like any narrator actor's dream is somebody calls you up and they're like, I have this project and I want you to do it. And you're like, oh my God. And then you look at the project and you're like, oh my God, it was written for me. It's definitely kismet on this. And they send me the whole book. And it's one of the perks of the job. Like, I feel really special that like I get to see books before they're published. I'm like, it feels so important. And I read through the book before I start recording. I read the whole book, and I start marking for characters. And usually, if it's dialogue heavy, I will highlight every line so that I can keep track of who's talking. Because very good authors don't say "so and so said" after every single time someone speaks. And they don't need to. And we're able to follow it, but we have to track it just so that we don't get mixed up about who's speaking. And I do things like that. And that's also when it's all in the text, they say. It's like I can find all the character choices I need to make vocally in the descriptions of the characters. Very often there are specifically voice descriptions, but also just talking about the way a character carries themselves, what their attitude is like, their energy. Whether there's somebody that's going to present themselves as confident or withdrawn or all that kind of stuff. And that's how you start making the character choices.
Yeah, and this is a book that is chock full of a variety of characters, and you do a fantastic job of kind of giving them each their own individual personality. And what gets tricky, I think, especially because these books center on 3 sisters, and the fact that you are still able to make those sisters unique and distinctive, that is always a challenge. I think you did a great job with that. So that's really fun.
That is the hard part. Like, people people talk about how, oh, doing really far out weird voices like the monster or something. I'm like, no, that's easy. But having like 4 women that are the same age, you know, basically from the same
Like
place.
your friend as well. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, all having a conversation together and keeping them distinct. That's the tricky part.
That definitely gets tricky, but you did it. You did a great job with it. So, so I mean, because traditional publishing can be so siloed in the production process, was there ever a time that you had any communication during the production process at all?
Yeah.
Okay. She
I
slipped into
totally-
my DMs.
Yes, I totally stalked her on as soon as I got cast. I found her on social media, and I was like, so. But generally speaking, it's been very. I started out doing indie authors only, and because it's just you and the author, it's very involved. And I had to learn through experience that you have to kind of set your boundaries as to how involved an author is allowed to be, because they are handing over their brain baby to you. And you have to get to a point where you're like, okay, I know your story and I am going to honor your story. And you have to trust me at this point. But this was one of the first books that I did where I didn't get a full character breakdown from the author in advance. And I just kind of had to go on my own a little.
I don't think they didn't even ask me to do one.
No, publishers don't. Publishers.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
It's the narrative.
Sometimes they'll ask for like any pronunciation recommendations or things like that. They'll ask like if there's how way you want certain names pronounced or whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, I just know too. And then when Zura started recording, like she'd give me like I'm gonna start recording in a week, you know. and then she'd send, are we allowed to say? And then she started sending me little snippets and behind the scenes. And I think there some bloopers that we posted on TikTok.
I sent the bloopers to you. Oh my God. They're so funny. And I mean, even until I started narrating, I always had this image of somebody sitting in their booth, you know, with their cocktail and just reading into the microphone. It's just that easy. And there are so many mistakes and it takes so long. I mean, getting one finished hour, once you're experienced, it'll take 2 hours to get one good hour. But like when I started, it would take me 6 hours to get one good hour.
Yeah, that's and so yeah, a lot of times if you're doing indie production, they'll often like, you know, you get paid per finished hour and you're like, oh my gosh, why are they paying these people $500,000, $600,000, a lot more than that for some narrators per finished hour. But it's like that's because it's for like 5, like you said, 5 hours of work, 3 hours of work, and if you're doing the producing as well as the narrating, which on the indie side you often do, you got all that time into it as well. Bloopers are the best. So if you've got bloopers on TikTok, I'm going to have to go find them.
You're gonna have to. There was one where we had to put some bleeps there because there were some F-bombs dropped during some.
Yes.
Oh my God! And there was one. I was recording and my cat knocked something over in my studio, and you're so in the world that you're not aware of anything happening in the room behind you. And it scared the bejesus out of me and like swearing. It's just terrible. Yes,
those are the best. Yeah, I was gonna say, because I do some narration under a pseudonym mostly for indie authors, and it was my dog, sure enough, it starts barking their head off, and that's like, it just becomes, they start swearing away. So you have the bloopers are a lot of fun. But I love that you kind of like snuck into our DMs and was like, we're sharing little bits and pieces.
It was the highlight of my day. Like, and then especially when she gave me that little snippet too of Edie, I like squealed so loud. My husband thought something happened like from the other room.
Yeah. And I know that as far as like the professional stuff, generally speaking, we always go through the producer and stuff like that for any work stuff. But it is, to me, it's such a personal experience because you are bringing to life some characters that were brought to life by somebody else. And so getting to share in the experience a little bit, I think is really special. Mm-hmm. And another project I recently did, but for Penguin Random House, and I don't actually have access to any of the files for it, but just being able to drop a line to the author and say, hey, I had to record this scene today and it broke my heart, you know, and things like that. I just want them to know how much I love getting to do their work.
Yeah, that's a gift that you're giving. Definitely, as an author, I can, and I see April smile. Like, it's just that makes it extra special and makes them feel like a part of the process in a way that that is, again, like usually we're separated from it. So yeah. I know lots of authors who can't even listen to their audiobooks. Like, they just can't do it. They can't hear them because they, and it feels like this separate entity, which, I mean, again, however it works for you to be able to handle. But I love that you have this kind of collaboration behind the scenes and what it sounds like has developed into a friendship.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And actually, I think every single one of my books has audio, but Not the Witch You Wed was the first audiobook of mine that I have listened to from start to finish.
Oh,
and it's because of Zura. Yeah.
Right, because it becomes something you're just like, you know what, I don't need to listen to this.
Or something, I'd listen to something, I'd be like, did I write that? Well, damn, she made that sound good. Like,
that's awesome. Like when they can when an author can say, you have elevated my work as a narrator, that has to feel so good.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So we mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about where the magic happens, and we kind of, like, I mentioned a little bit about your studio that you had built, Zura. Now, do you do all of your narrating in-house now in your own house, or do you go to other studios or anything like
that? The first time that I ever worked in a recording studio was just for my first book with Penguin Random House, and more than anything, it's because I had a director for the entire thing, which I had never gotten to do before. And it's a completely different experience. And because I was going to be on their schedule for recording and it was pretty tight, I was so nervous that, like, we were going to be trying to make our deadline. And one of my neighbors was going to decide to pull out their leaf blower and start blow drying their truck because it rained. And I was just like, oh my God, if that holds everything up, I'm going to be so horrified. And my producer was amazing, was just like, look, we don't want you to be stressed about anything. It's easier to just put it in the studio. But so that was amazing. But mostly I'm in my little box next door. And my husband's an engineer and he designed and built it for me. And he actually works in shipping. So the whole time he was building it, he was talking about, like, the hatch and the hull and the stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, my booth is going to be seaworthy.
If there's a flood, you're set. Just climb in there.
Mm-hmm.
That had to be interesting to like you said, to work with a director and a different kind of experience. So for you, April, where does the magic happen? You said you like to write at night. So do you have an office or?
I do. I'm in it now. I don't write in it. You're
not the first author to say that.
I have a perfectly good office that I don't use. I don't know. I always have to sit in the oddest positions. That's how I'm comfortable. Like my legs like up to here and crisscrossed, and so I tend to write on the left side of my couch, right? With my computer like balanced on the arm of the couch. That's where most of it happens. My husband tried to get me one of those lap desks, and that didn't work either. I like the balance.
You like it to be a certain way. The fact, it's so funny that you say, I've got this office, I don't write in it. Like
Yeah.
again, like so many authors talk about, like, I don't know, yeah, don't I write on my couch as well. Like this is where I do all the writing.
Well, you know, when my kids were younger, it was just out of necessity because, you know what I mean? It was always constantly, hey, mom, hey, mom, hey, mom, where's this? Where's that? I mean, they're teenagers and they still do it, but it's just now they're more vocal and louder about it. But it just, but then it just became a habit. You know what I mean? Like I'm there, you know, does it make me a little less productive when everybody's around me? Well, yeah, I get distracted. That's why most of the stuff happens when everybody is gone and the house is quiet. And it's just me and the cat. Yeah.
Yes. And that's another thing with everyone being home from the pandemic. For me, it made writing like,
it was rough.
Yeah.
It was rough.
It's like, everyone just go away.
I know.
And you wanted to, you couldn't, you want to go away, but you couldn't. So this one is just kind of fun. Like, do you have any special snacks when you're writing that you like to have, things that you need to have as writing fuel?
I don't know that so much snacks, but I tend to drink way too much Snapple. The raspberry, the diet raspberry. And of course, when I drink it, you know, then I have to pee every 5 minutes. But it forces me to take little writing breaks, you know, because then I have to get that. But yeah. So, but that's probably like my my weakness is raspberry Snapple.
Oh. Zara, how about you? Obviously not doing a lot of eating in the studio, but there's always like people talk about, like, you know, eat an apple before you narrate or things like that. But like,
there are those things. I definitely have to stay way away from dairy, anything creamy, yogurt, whatever beforehand. I've been finding recently that coffee has been drying my voice out, my throat and everything out more than usual, which kills me because I'm like, I need to have coffee all the time. And now I'm like, except I can't. And so I always have water in the booth with me. What's something that I like to have? I don't know. I don't get into teas probably as much as I should. But yeah, just lots and lots and lots of water. I have a giant cup that is always with me. San Francisco. There's my logo. There's my dinosaur.
It's so cute. So staying hydrated, yeah, that's definitely the secret for sure. So we're gonna move from talking about your book and your audiobooks to audiobooks in general, because I think we're all here because, you know, we are all fans of audiobooks ourselves and enjoy them. So Zara, I want to kind of start with you because you had mentioned that it was listening to audiobooks as a child that kind of got you into theater, which then eventually led you back around full circle to becoming an audiobook narrator. So do you remember the first audiobook you ever listened to?
The first audiobook collection that I had, it was a BBC done production of all of Beatrix Potter's stories. And my favorite was Mrs. Tiggy Winkle. And they had done it as a full radio production. So it had sound effects and music and different actors doing the voices and songs. And I still remember all the songs from those original ones. And that was at that point in time is when I decided that when I grew up, I wanted to be British.
So you with the accents as well as the music. I mean, this is like a full production.
It was perfect. And everything was very posh. It was BBC and it was Beatrix Potter. And so, and I would walk around the house talking like that. My older brother would get so irritated when I would do act. He'd be like, Mom, she's doing voices again.
See, I would do that at the bus stop and drive my daughter crazy, but that's something different.
Yeah. And it's
go ahead.
My husband's one of the first people that I have had a long-term relationship with that is not phased when I go from one voice to another, or I'll just throw an accent randomly, or I'll suddenly be somebody else, and he just kind of rolls with it, and he's like, well, there goes.
Well, there's true love right there.
Yep. He'll even join in.
That's fun.
Yeah.
April, do you remember your first audiobook that you ever listened to?
I was trying to remember. I didn't get like more hardcore into audiobooks until a lot like later on in life. But I do remember it was a YA book. I'm trying to remember. I want to say it was the Vampire Academy series ones, I believe. And then when life, kids and everything happened, and I don't know, that my taste changed and I was more into physical books because I like to smell them, you know what I mean? And then when I became a published author, then I started getting back in them again. And a lot of my friends were like, oh, I can get so much stuff done while listening, to a book. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. And I didn't do it. I didn't do it. And then finally, when I started, I was like, oh my God, I just did like a bajillion loads of laundry and how many loads of dishes. And my husband can't say that I didn't do anything because all I did was read and sit on the couch because I was reading while I was doing everything. So, and then once that was like it, I was like, all right.
Yeah, I was trying to think too. Like, I'm the one that asked the question. I was like, what was my first? And like, I don't think I really got into audiobooks either, and definitely until like my late teens. And then I think I really fell in love with all of the Amanda Quick romances. So that's Jane Ann Krentz, but like her pseudonym Amanda Quick. Like I loved all of those. And then I really think that it was the Elizabeth Peters series that was narrated by Barbara Rosenblatt, I think is her name. And those just, I mean, I was like, I would be out. This is back in the day when you had to go to the library and get them on CD. Like they were like a giant wallet of CDs. And talking about getting things done. Like when we moved into this house, I painted every room of this house while listening to audiobooks. But it was bad. I was listening to Outlander at that point, which is like 50 CDs.
Yeah.
And I had strapped to me my little CD,
the portable Walkman.
Discman.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's so much easier now. It could just be like on a Bluetooth speaker, but but no, I had
it is so easy. Yes.
And just like those Outlander audiobooks, like just the amount of CDs that those required. So we already talked this about a little bit, but we'll have to talk about it some more. So it sounds like April, you're a lot like me, and you do a lot of audiobook listening while doing chores, like getting laundry done, doing dishes.
Yeah.
I especially in the summer, because I live in the Chicagoland area where it's not nice right now, but in the summer, I love to take like nice long walks, and that's kind of like my treat is getting an hour or two of an audiobook in while I'm out on a walk. So, and if it's really good and I can't stop walking, it's even better. So how about you, April? Is it pretty much doing chores, or do you listen while driving, or?
Chores and driving, because I do have a little bit of a commute. But it never fails. Like right when I'm getting ready to get to my place where I'm going is always really good part, So then it's, a long time of, anxiousness before I can get back into the car and start listening again. But yeah, mostly it's like chores and like you said, and like walks and things like that. I find time to do it. And now my family has realized that when I have my wireless earbuds in, if they see like the purple sticking out of my ear, oh, mom's really not listening to what I'm actually saying. She is listening to something else. So I have
the opposite
trained.
in our house is my kid who's constantly got her earbuds in, and I'm just like, she's not listening. Like,
my teenagers were the same thing. And then but then when I got on the new audiobook kick, it was like I was the one always, and especially my oldest is like, oh, who's got the earbuds in their ear now?
Definitely. So because it is your job and it is your career, and sometimes, it's like the person who like does this for a living doesn't want to do it when they're not working. Do you like to listen to audiobooks?
I love listening to audiobooks, and I feel like I don't have enough time to listen to audiobooks. I've been trying to listen to more of my friends' audiobooks, and it's like everybody always has stuff coming out. It's kind of crazy to me that when I first started narrating, most of the stuff I was listening to was all narrated by men. And it's just because I listened to a lot of sci-fi and that sort of stuff. And then and I was like, I don't know if I have any like female role models in the audiobook industry. And now I haven't listened to something narrated by a guy since, I don't know, 2019. Oh no, I take it back. He Who Fights with Monsters, Heath Miller. They are the best books. They're so good.
He Who Fights with Monsters?
Lit RPG, funny, smart, original. Heath Miller is a killer narrator. He does 10,000 voices. He's amazing.
Oh.
All right.
Well, that's stealing an answer from a question from later. So Heath, you said Heath Miller. I'm gonna have to look this up. So
I
wanted to ask about favorite narrators. So is that a favorite narrator of yours?
Heath is totally one of my favorites. Absolutely. I have like a total like fangirl crush on Saskia Marleveld.
Okay.
It just can do any accent, and she's so easy to listen to. Who else have I been listening to recently? I've been listening to a series narrated by Lindsay Dorcas, who's a friend of mine, who is wonderful. It's the series by who is it? It's Sarah K.L. Wilson. Is that right? I'm getting that right. And it's the Bluebeard saga. So it's Fly with the Arrow is the first one. And I'm on book 4 now. And it's just such a dark fantasy world. And I love, love, love that.
April, besides Zura, do you have any other favorite narrators?
Well, Zura is my most favorite. I will say the narrators from the Stay a Spell series, I really do enjoy. I want to say, oh gosh, is it Joanna Fairview and Aiden something?
Aiden Snow?
Yes, Aiden Snow. Look at the face. I'm telling you, when I first heard, you know how, especially when you get that growl, you know what I mean? Like you hear we write the romance, but we know, we always have at some point in the book, he growled, okay? And like he has like that deep voice, like when he pitches it low and he growls, like you could feel the growl. Like
if you guys haven't listened to the A Cursed Kiss and A Cursed Heart, which I narrate for Jenny Hickman, it's a dark fae romantasy, and I work
these books up.
I know. I think I saw you posted, but I haven't.
I have codes for these, so I'll just DM me.
Okay.
But my co-narrator on those ones is Zachary Johnson. No relation.
Oh.
His voice is butter. And I had done a series for Jenny before. And this was the first time she was like, I would love it if it was you and a guy. Can we do it?
Narration? And
it's not dual POV. It's 100% from the female main character's point of view, but it's done as a duet. So it's line by line, like a drama. And Zachary is amazing. And she's also written 2 books now that are the exact same books, but from the men's POV. And we haven't figured out if those are going to go into audiobook yet, but it's fascinating. And it's so thrilling as a listener to like fall in love with these characters. But there are all those times when like one of the characters leaves and has to go somewhere and you don't know where they are. And so to then get their book and to find out where they went and why they had to leave for a while, and you're like, oh, I had no idea. It's the best.
So one of our listeners is saying that Heath Miller is married to Catherine Valente. I don't know.
I don't know.
I do not know. So we've got some other recommendation here. Barbara Rosenblatt, someone else loves as well. Susan Erickson are some favorite narrators. Someone said that their first audiobook was Bernard Cornwell's The Winter King. So That's interesting. Oh, and someone was saying that they loved your British accent, that you fell into there for a minute. They said you did very nice.
Thank you.
So
That's me being British with that.
one of our our audience members here is asking. She's like, I want to get into audiobooks more. Where are the best places to get them or borrow them? She's been thinking about joining Audible. So if you're just thinking about it, yeah, you can join Audible, but it is a commitment and it is expensive, and they are not paying their authors or their narrators what they should. But you can look at like places like Hoopla, which is through your library system, and you can borrow audiobooks through Hoopla for free, completely legally. You're not pirating them, through Hoopla and Overdrive. And someone in the chat mentioned Chirp, which is a great place to get them cheap. Also, is it Libro? Is that
Libro,
the one connected to
yeah.
indie? And that will be connected to indie bookstores, so that places like Love Sweet Arrow can get credit for that audiobook purchase.
Exactly.
So lots of opportunities to find where you can get some audiobooks and kind of start to because I have an Audible subscription, but I more often than not end up listening through Hoopla to a lot of stuff. So let's see here. I think that covers any questions we have right now. If you have any other questions for April or Zura, now's the time to drop them in the chat, because we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon. So if you do have questions for them, please drop them in the chat. We are going to talk. So I wanted to ask if you had, April, besides Zura, who you've been so lucky to work with, but do you have like a dream narrator that you would love to have narrate one of your books one day? Someone you're like, oh yeah, this person.
That guy from Tech that has been reading, what's his name? I can't remember. Have you seen? There's a guy on TikTok that I can't remember what he started as, and then people started calling or messaging him and asking him to read snippets of romance novels, and he's been doing that. And I'm gonna have to look. I think I follow.
Man from TikTok. Okay.
Man from TikTok. I'm telling you. And talk about
that would be hilarious if that's, I feel like that works.
Yeah. He literally usually films himself standing in front of a mirror, and people will say, hey, can you read an excerpt from this such and such a romance book? And he started doing that. And it's hysterical. Talk about a growly voice. So I would say him, just for the shits
I
and
need to
giggles.
Find Man from TikTok.
I'll try and scroll through TikTok tonight and see if I can find him.
I would love to know.
I'll let you know.
It'll be very difficult, I'm sure, to have to. So Zura, for you, are there any authors that you were like a dream that one day I would love to narrate, a project of theirs?
I was thinking about this today, because I was like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. I feel like I fall in love with worlds first because of listening to audiobooks. And I'm like, so if it's not an audiobook yet, I don't know.
That's funny, yeah, because you're listening to audiobooks. If there is something out there that's not on audio, you're not aware of it.
Yeah, it's terrible. I can't tell you how many times I'm prepping a book and I'm reading through it. And I'd be like, oh, this would be so much quicker if it was on audio. And then I'm like, wait. That was the purpose.
That's why I'm here.
But I would love to work with Margaret Owen. I love the worlds that she creates. It would be fun.
All right. So we have a couple of final questions here, and if you're watching, you are welcome to drop your answers into the chat, because we have some really funny ones. Oh, Kiri, I want to say, is telling you, April, that she loves your titles and not your X's hexes. It's just the cutest. And Kiri, I was like, can we talk about book 3? And she's like, I can't talk about the title yet. So
well, I can't name the title. I can tell you, not isn't it?
What? I'm so surprised.
I know, right? And I can say, well, I think everybody knows now. It's about Bax and Olive. And
I know.
I do. Max steals the show every time he's in a scene. Oh my goodness.
Let me tell you, it's the quiet tattooed ones that you just gotta,
Twice tattooed ones with wings.
I know, with wings. I will say at the launch event the other night, somebody had asked about the third book, and Avery and I were talking about spice, you know what I mean? And I said, well, because I guess there's, and I forgot I wrote it, but Avery pointed it out, that there's a line in there that I think Harper says to Rose, like, you've been extra horny lately, Rose. You know what I mean? Like, and I've noticed, the spice level is getting a little spicier with each book. So that's why I was saying, like, Olive's like the quiet one, but she's going to be the one that you're going to have to watch out for. That's all I'm saying.
It's always
I just got the edits in my inbox, like just the other day. I was like, all right, I just need to get through like release stuff, and then I'm hitting the edits for book 3. So I'm telling you.
That sounds good. Okay, so right before we wrap up, we've got a few minutes left. We're going to do some rapid fire questions. So don't think about it, just answer. Oh. And again, if you're in the chat, feel free to drop your answers to these questions too. I'd love to hear them. So April, if you could have one magical ability, what would it be?
To clean my house with a snap of my fingers.
Okay, the Mary Poppins magic. Got it.
Yeah.
Zura, what about you?
teleport. I want to be able to travel anywhere.
Okay, I changed my answer. I want that one.
I feel like I want invisibility. That's what I want. So Zura, what kind of animal would you want to be able to shift into?
A tiger, but not like this, but totally a tiger.
Which was hilarious. The whole Tiger King thing is hilarious. that BTW. That was very funny. Okay, so Zara's gonna be a tiger. And April?
I was gonna say a big cat, but she just kind of like took that. I don't know, maybe like a unicorn.
Ooh, okay, that'd be fun.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so hard for me to choose. I'm like, do I want to fly or do I want to swim? Like,
yeah, and the only reason why is because I just started a book the other day, like at 3:00 in the morning when I couldn't sleep, and it had to do with a unicorn shifter, and I was like, ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then our last quick question of the evening: your favorite fictional witch, April?
I have too many.
Your sisters.
Okay, I have way too many, but I'm gonna say Bonnie from Vampire Diaries.
Okay, Bonnie from Vampire Diaries, and then Zura.
Baba Yaga, the Russian witch.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm like, why does it sound so familiar? And like now I realize, right? Okay. Yeah. I was just watching something that had like a whole aspect of that. What was I watching? I don't know, but that came up a lot. I know The Witcher kind of alludes to that character in that house, that creepy house with
It alludes. It's in John Wick too. They compare him to Baba Yaga, which is kind of like she is the ultimate boogeyman in a way, but you can't compare a guy to Baba Yaga. It's just not. I love you, John, but no. And I've gotten to work on 2 different books that had Baba Yaga in them, which was,
That's really cool. For me, it's more it's kind of like, because it's the actress Bernadette Peters playing the witch in Into the Woods.
Yes.
Like, it's like, the witch is in the woods, but the Bernadette Peters, like that's gotta be all together. And I don't really love musicals, but that, for some reason, that one is just, it's irresistible. So
it is.
All right, so I want to thank the author and the narrator for joining me this evening. Thank you, Zura and April, for joining us tonight and chatting with me and Love Sweet Arrow. Remember, you can grab April's books from Love Sweet Arrow and get signed book plates. And if you wanted to get the audiobooks, you can get those through Libro, and then Love Sweet Arrow will get that credit. I'm going to check to see if we have any other questions. Christina is saying she can't wait. She's excited for Baz and Olive as well.
It seems to be a general theme. I'm promise. I'm working on it. I'm doing edits. After this, that's right where I'm going, to my left side of the couch, and I'm going to work on it.
The right side of the couch.
The left side of the couch.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Is it just going to be the sisters, or is Harper going to get a book?
Oh, everybody always asks me that. Okay, so here's my standard boilerplate. I have ideas for all of them. And I know, like Melanie knows, with traditional publishing, sometimes you get to do what you want. Sometimes you don't.
Sometimes no.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
so I have ideas for at least another 3 or 4 more, and I do have ideas for a little bit of a spin-off type of thing too. But at the moment, all they are hopes and ideas and fingers crossed.
Yes. Yay.
100% fingers crossed. That is a good question, and that is a very good answer.
Yeah.
And I think just based on this, we've got some fans here who are saying they can't wait. They're excited. So thank you, everyone who joined us for the chat this evening. And go get some audiobooks. Go get some listening in.
Thank you. Bye.